Thank you guys so much for tuning in the channel. We're going to be building bag B of the Tekno SCT410 2.0. Let's get started. It's going to be a lot similar to the center differential that we just built. I'm only going to be building one differential, and then you can build the other one. They should be identical with the exception of the diff fluid that you put in them. As you can see, if that camera will focus, I kind of put an F on this one. I just kind of scratched that into the plastic of the diff housing. And that way, when I go to assemble it, I'll know that this is the front and it has a different weight diff fluid than the rear. So some people just write on there with a Sharpie. I just kind of like to scratch it in. It won't come off that way. All right, so I went ahead, I put my bushing on here. Same as before, we're going to take some grease, put it on the outer diameter of this shaft, like so. And I'm going to take some grease, just like the center diff, and put it down in the center there. And I usually just get a little dab, and then I'll find a tool or something and work it around. Seems to work pretty good for me. You guys feel free to comment below. Curious to see how you guys are doing your builds. Feel free to give me any tips and tricks. Shaft goes through the bushing, through this. O-ring goes on top, like so. I'm going to take my tool, very softly, very gently, work that down in there, if I can. Being very easy, don't want to damage that O-ring. Take our washer. It's going over top of the O-ring in that order. Just kind of going to push that down, push everything together good. Now there's a hole through this shaft here. We're going to line it up with this slot and try to slide a pin through. I like to use my needle nose pliers for this. Just work that pin all the way through with your needle nose pliers. Should look like that. If it's not even, take something down in there, try to get it centered up. And this is going to be the front differential, and it calls for the 15,000. When you build your rear, it calls for the 10,000. Just like the center diff, I'm going to put a little in here to get started. Go ahead and drop this gear. That slot will go on top of the pin that we just installed. Should look like so. I'm going to go ahead and add more diff fluid. Before we install the rest of our gears. Just kind of build a little bit at a time. Fill a little bit of diff fluid and build some more. Centerpiece is plastic, just like the center diff was. Never had any trouble with the plastic ones. Go like so. And this will go in the 4 slots there. Should drop down. Go ahead and push that down, and now I'm going to add more diff fluid. And you kind of want to have it level with the top of that gear right there is what the instruction manual is calling for. Looks like I'll need a little bit more. And then try to get it in the corners here. And then we're going to let her sit a minute. Let all the air bubbles kind of get out of it. And then we'll finish the install. All right, we're going to continue with the build. Take our bearing. Snaps on that ring gear right there. And then we'll take grease, just like the other part. Put it around through there. Set this down. Find our O-ring. Give it a little bit of grease. Like so. This part goes on here. And then put a little grease down in there. About forgot. Take my tool, spread it around. Looks pretty good. Take my O-ring. Like so. We get the washer, goes next. Then we got to put our pin through. And it's a lot easier with pliers here. Should look like that. Next, I'm going to go ahead and put this face down. That pin will go in that slot right there. And like I said, try to line it up with the slots right there. Clean that little extra bit of diff fluid off. We're going to get our little seal right here. Go ahead and install it. Get it centered up. If you have to, take a little tool, kind of move it around a little bit. Like so. Push it down. Now, make sure that's centered. This should go right on top of that, and our hole should align if this piece is aligned right. So let's go ahead and do that. We'll stick that on top of there. Now we're ready for our screws. Give those a turn. Everything feels really, really good. Nice and smooth. Like I said, this has been the front diff. Build the rear diff exactly the same, only using the 10,000 weight fluid. Thank you guys for tuning in.